One of the most amazing elephants that we've had around here in months to come. And well, yeah, we've been watching him now 2 drives, yesterday afternoon and this morning. And I think we are just as in awe of him as all the females and the youngsters are, the way they seem to come along and look at him and revere him. He's a giant of an elephant. He's not a very big tusker, but he's a very tall, big elephant. And we are here on the open area near camp. And I hear a chopper taking off. I make a noise. Let's see what he does. This is going to be very interesting. There's a helicopter that has been here at the lodge. Probably come in to fetch guests or drop off guests. Or it could be something entirely different. But what's interesting is that helicopters have been used in the park for many, many years for various different things, including game capture exercises, but more specifically, on a very negative note, unfortunately, back in the 80s, helicopters were used when elephant populations were very high and there was a decision made to cull elephants. And as sad as that may sound, that is what was done back in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. And elephants got to know about these things. And this is an elephant that would have been even an adult back in the 70s and 80s, or at least a young adult, and he would have known about it, because what was amazing was in those days when there was culling done in Kruger, when that helicopter took off, elephants passed on the message through their infrasound throughout the population, and that message would be sent, and it was noted that there was change in elephant behavior even as far away as several hundred kilometers as soon as the chopper was in the air. And perhaps the fact that there hasn't been any culling for over a decade or more, no, maybe 2 decades now, might be an indication of the fact that he's not even reacting to the sound of this helicopter. I suppose more importantly, he's not even reacting to our presence. This is a big elephant bull. He's in must. Sorry, we're going to just move a little forward and watch him. He's under a big marula tree, a beautiful big marula tree. So let's go around this bush willow, get him from the front. Yeah, he is reacting. Look at that. He doesn't like it at all. Sorry, had this big bush willow in the way. He ran away a little bit. He watched where the helicopter was going, and he turned around and he came back. But boy, was that interesting. It's the first time I've actually been with an elephant, with a helicopter taking off. He didn't like it at all. What is more amazing is that he's letting us be here. He knows that humans operate heli. He knows exactly what's going on, and yet he seems to be fine. We've suddenly gotten downwind of him and we're picking up his must smell. Wow. He still remembers those days of the helicopters. Now, it was from those days when elephant calves would be spared. Well, it was sad though, because they might have been spared the cull, but they weren't spared the trauma. And they went through the most incredible trauma to be captured and kept in bomas until there were enough of them to translocate. And of course, not as much was understood about elephants. In fact, there weren't that many people that had the passion for elephants in those days. And it was thought that, well, they could collect 20 calves and then reintroduce elephants to areas where they'd become extinct. And yes, the intention was very good. Make no mistake. The intention was to repopulate areas that had been reclaimed from farmland, areas that had been turned back into wilderness, or rather wildlife areas. And of course, it'll never be wilderness, but areas that that authorities were hoping to re-establish elephant populations, and they thought, well, let's just take all the babies and put them there. And it was a case of just putting a bunch of children in a place without adult supervision, and the result of that was several years later these young elephant bulls are growing up without the guidance of older bulls, without the guidance of their mothers, without the discipline, I think more importantly, without the discipline in elephant society. And when they started coming into must and they started getting a little bit more aggressive, they started taking it out on things like rhino, and I think maybe the odd buffalo, but mostly the rhino. And there was a period of time, I think it was the late 80s, going into the early 90s, and into the mid-90s, that many rhino were actually gored to death by these elephant bulls that had no discipline and that had no control. And one of the things that managed to stop the whole process was the introduction of adult bulls, but also it was decided to spend a bit of money and actually translocate whole breeding herds rather than just calves. And nowadays, perhaps a lesson learnt, nowadays the only viable way to repopulate an area is to take a whole herd of elephants rather than individuals. Of course, it becomes logistically a nightmare and financially exorbitant. But so many areas now have been repopulated with elephants, successfully so, that elephants have got a far greater range than they did have 10 or 20 or even 30 years ago. Lessons learned. You know, in the early days of game capture alone, let alone for elephants, but in simple game capture, when before even the advent of darting drugs that affected the nervous system, that allowed people to get up close to animals and load them onto vehicles. It was a case of herding animals into bomas and putting them through so much stress. And then came the age of drugs, and unfortunately in the trials of finding out which drugs were best and what the doses were, there were losses. There were invariably losses. A lot of the losses occurred through what we call capture myopathy, which was they classified it as a disease, I think, but it was a stress disease that was brought about by the stress caused through game capture. And so many animals died from this kind of this severe stress that they were put through. And it was through trial and error and through learning and through understanding, and also perhaps a little bit more so through a little bit of compassion, that people started realizing that you can't just drug an animal, put it in a box and take it somewhere else. There's a lot that has to be done to make this animal comfortable and to minimize the amount of stress that and human contact that these animals have. It's still a very big business, big industry, game capture and translocating of animals, moving animals around from private properties to other private properties, areas that are perhaps enclosed, self-contained, that don't have predators, that don't have the option of allowing nature to take its course, where habitat management is as perhaps almost as intense as in a zoo, or rather a safari park. Even though you might have an area of 10,000 hectares, which is about 20 to 25,000 acres, there is still critical habitat management needed in an enclosed area. You still have what we call a carrying capacity for different species. You have to calculate let's put it this way, you have to calculate the available vegetation versus the species you want to carry, and work out how many of that particular species that habitat could safely carry without overutilization and without any predators, because a lot of these areas don't have predators, there is always an excess of animals that have to be moved off every year, and this is where all the game auctions come in. And well, I suppose as with anything in the human world, it opens it up for exploitation, but generally it's a very decent and a very important industry. Being able to move animals around the country to areas where they once belonged and they no longer occur, maybe as a result of farming or agriculture, as a result of those areas reverting back to the natural wild, and farmers deciding to go back into wildlife and into perhaps tourism rather than engaging or fighting the elements trying to farm something. In many, many areas it's been proven that there's a far greater return per hectare with areas under wildlife, photographic tourism that sustains that wildlife. There's a far greater return than any form of farming or agriculture on a per hectare basis, and that in itself has prompted a lot of farmers to go back to game farming. I think the next step from there, once they learn that is a good, or once they realize how good that is to start developing conservancies, joining up with their neighbors and creating these very, very large conservation areas that we call conservancies, and declaring them private nature reserves, where several farmers will get together and remove their internal fencing, and they will create a much larger area where they will be able to hold perhaps greater numbers but also a greater diversity of wildlife. And nature has proved to us how resilient it is in restoring itself once it's left to its own devices. Now the Sabi Sand is one of those places, and it was probably one of the first private game reserves that was established back in the 50s, where all the landowners within the Sabi Sand decided, we'd have a far greater chance at giving wildlife what it needs if we didn't have our own little petty personal politics amongst the landowners, and dropped the fences, created a perimeter fence, and instead of a 1,000 hectare farm and a 6,000 hectare farm or a 10,000 hectare farm all buffering each other, they dropped the internal fences, created a 56,000 hectare reserve, and that is what became the Sabi Sand. Time moved on, and back in the 90s, eventually the Kruger Park fence was removed and the Sabi Sand was incorporated into Kruger. So now the Sabi Sand is part of millions of hectares, and now very, very little habitat management is needed. Very little, in fact almost no control is needed over the numbers of animals that occur here. The only thing that needs to be controlled perhaps is the habitat. And in areas where the grasses grow too thick and too dense, sometimes it's necessary to induce controlled burns to reset the balance, to reset, not so much the balance, but to reset the sequence of plants from your pioneers to your climaxes. And eventually it gets too dry and too moribund and too thick, and no light, no air, no new growth can occur. And after 5 to 10 years, it's sometimes necessary to have a burn. And as much as I know the owners, and as much as I know it's not going to happen here, but there are areas here on Tuma that perhaps could benefit from a burn. There's a very gentle elephant. He's in full must. We're getting the must smell from him. There's a bit of a breeze blowing our way. It's very still, but there's still air movement that's coming our way. Very strong smell. And for an elephant in must who's got heightened testosterone levels, he's a wonderful bull to allow us to sit here and watch him. I'll probably be going through the photographs of elephant bulls that I have from home and to see if I've ever seen him at home. Strong likelihood that he's been up in the Timbavati. Hello, Steph, and thanks for your question, an interesting question. Steph says that she's heard that an elephant's height is about 2.5 times the circumference of his back or front foot. Well, what I'd be interested in is actually measuring the circumference of both the back and the front foot to see if it's a similar circumference. The front foot is much rounder, thicker and rounder. The back foot is a lot more egg-shaped. I'm not too sure if the two are of similar size. But yes, there is a definite correlation between the size of an elephant's foot and his age and his height. And there have been studies done. I've never really measured things. In fact, what I can do now, I'm just looking at that silver cluster leaf that he's standing next to, and I'm looking at that elbow just off his left shoulder. That's about the height of his left shoulder blade, his nuchal muscle. Well, his shoulder blade's actually higher than his nuchal muscle. His ear is about that height. And it'd be interesting maybe one of these days to come along and actually measure the height of that elbow in that dry piece of that. You can see that piece of that tree just next to his left ear there. About the same height as him. And I'd like to be able to measure that. And maybe we can even try and get a measurement of his foot. So we'll be able to maybe put it to the test. But there is a definite correlation between the size of an elephant's foot and his age and height. I have a study, and it's not here unfortunately, but I have a scientific paper amongst a lot of papers that I have. That's with all my stuff in storage. And that is a paper that was done in East Africa on elephant foot size versus age. Height perhaps is a slightly different issue, because height can be genetic in just the same way that some of us when we're adults are only 5 foot, 5 foot 8 or 9, and some of us are 6 foot 5, some even 7 foot. So I think it's the same with elephants. I mean, we could get an elephant the same age as him, might not be as tall as him. I'd say the base of his tail is already at least 7 foot off the ground. And while we've been watching him, I've heard some branches breaking down in the drainage line below us. I was headed to Treehouse Dam. I was convinced, because we left all those alleys around Spam Road, I was going to head to Treehouse Dam to see if those herds are around the dam. Maybe we should do that and maybe come back to him just to go and have a look. But I'm just going to go down to the bottom end of the open area just to see if there are any family groups down there. Jambo Rafiki. Back home, a lot of people back home, when I meet them, they tell me about, they refer to, or I started it, I guess, but they've come to understand me. And when I see an elephant, I say to them, Malume Wame, which means my cousin or my uncle. And when I go home, I get told, oh, we saw your Malume, we saw your cousin, your uncle, he was here. Doesn't matter which one it is, but instead of calling him elephant, they refer to them as your Malume was at your house, your cousin or your uncle. Depends on the context. I think I must have been an elephant in a past life, or maybe life is setting me up to become an elephant in my next life. Guido, yes. If a tracker is looking at the track of an elephant, yeah, I think I saw an elephant down here in the drainage line right now. Guido, very much so. Very much what I was talking about now is the fact that there is definitely a way to tell the size and age of an elephant just by his track or her track. And I mean, I can look at elephants' tracks and I can say whether it's a big or I can more or less say how old it is without a tape measure. Look at this one, another bull standing up here on this termite mound. I'd like to see him standing next to the other one, because he's also not a very small bull. He's a fairly large. He's not a youngster. Are you listening to something, Mr. Tembo? I think they must be spread out all the way down this drainage line towards Philemon's Dip. He's not doing anything, he's just standing there, listening. Oh, stopped. Probably having a conversation with one of his mates, and we couldn't hear. Feeding on a false marula. That must have been what we heard go down while we were with the big bull, if it is pushed over. Okay, I'm just going to move again. There was yet another LA that I saw. I'll let him feed a little bit and come back and try and find him again. Get an idea who he is. Can't see much of him. Oh wait, here we go. You're coming out this way, young man? No. I thought he was backing out. A little bit of a nick on the bottom of his left ear. Big bull still up there. I can see him through the trees. So hasn't moved at all since we left him. Elephants will cover vast different distances. In fact, there's a strong possibility that there'll be several months. Hello. It's okay, little boy. Relax. I mean, we're looking into the sun right now. There's another one of the young bulls that's around. And there's still even one or two more down in the drainage line. Hello. He's also stopping and listening. And it could be maybe all those family groups that we saw, maybe there's a lot of rumbling from them that these bulls are listening to. What also could be is that there's some females in estrus and the bulls are collecting because they've heard about it, they're picking up on the scent, and they're picking up on the fact that there's a female that's ready for breeding, and they're all going to be competing to some degree. And this little boy's got absolutely no chance whatsoever. And yeah, some of it has got to do with sparring. It's only really the big, very big bulls that will compete with each other. It'll get to serious fights. There's another one down here, but that looks like a female. Looks like a cow. I don't know how much further we can go. It's starting to get a little bit over this raisin bush. Long grasses. There's a very deep drainage line ahead of us. It may be not a good idea to try and venture into. So try from this angle. Look at this tusk mark on this marula tree. Not fresh, but it's still. I sometimes wonder if elephant bulls get to this point where they mark a tree and say, okay, nick it, bark, and that's my tree. Other elephants come along and they say, okay, well, this one's been marked, can't touch this one. Hello. Oh, this is a young bull. It's got a rather angular forehead like a cow. That is another bull. Okay. So we are mostly with a bunch of bulls here. I'm not seeing any of the family groups, and they're all fairly quiet. You're gonna come and greet us, Mr. Ellie? You can come out. Clear view for me, but not for you. The camera a little bit further back. Let me move. He might want to come down here, so there isn't much of a path for him. He's got a very thick neck, this bull. Not a very big bull, but he's got a very thick neck. It's just almost like a warning. I'm just trying to get out of here. But it's important that as he does something like that, as he throws his head at us and blasts his air through his trunk, important to just stop and let him know that I'm not trying to intimidate him. He's smelling us surreptitiously. His trunk is down but then curled towards us, and so he's pretending not to, but he is just giving us a sniff. And me stopping the vehicle and switching off is an indicator to him that I accept the fact that I've just irritated him maybe, but I mean him no harm and I'm here in peace. And he goes back to feeding. Okay, let's try and move out of here again. Problem is I'm on a branch, a pretty big marula branch. It just came off of this marula tree behind us, and that crunched under the tires. Quite big for a turkey berry. Okay, these bulls are pretty sedentary at the moment. They're not moving very far. The big bull up in the open area is still there. He also hasn't gone very far. I would like to just make my way quickly towards Treehouse Dam and see if the herds are not there maybe. Hi Guido, again, and nice question there as well. And Guido's asking, can you tell the individuals of the elephant by their spoor? And the answer there is yes, a most definite yes, Guido. And not only from the diameter, or rather even the circumference of the spoor, the track. Okay, I'm just going to try and get through here. There's a young bull just below us and I don't want to intimidate him too much, just to get to the road. He's a bit shy. I think those are the two bulls that we saw up. The two youngsters that are here are the two youngsters that we had on towards the sandy patch this morning. They've come up to join these other bulls. In fact, I'm positive that the two young bulls that are here are those two. But yes, Guido, give me a moment or two, in fact maybe a little while, and if I find a really nice track, I'll be able to show you why it is so easy, or rather not easy, why it is possible to tell individuals just from their tracks, and not necessarily just from the size of their tracks, but also just like we have fingerprints, elephants have footprints and markings in their footprints that are very distinctive for each individual. But for the time being, I just want to go over to Treehouse Dam quickly. I want to have a look up there and see if those family groups are there. The cloud that we had this morning has burnt away. It's turned into a really beautiful afternoon. It's nice and warm. And there's a good chance if they stayed in that area, they might be at the dam. And there might be at least one family group around the dam. I do want to come back here to these bulls. I'd love to spend a little bit more time with that big bull. It has got to be I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, just talking about it. It's just got to be one of the most humbling and the most spiritual experiences, being with an elephant like that. I mean, it's like that with all elephants, but especially a tall, magnificent bull that even the females and the youngsters are inspired by. I can never get enough of elephants. Personally, I could just, that's all I need to do, is just be with elephants all day, and eventually you get to see everything else, because the way elephants move, you'll be able to find lion and leopard and all sorts of things just following them. But I know that's not really possible, especially since we're only out for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. But in this small patch of bushveld that we have to cover, just as we've sort of taken advantage of the fact that we had a cheetah here for 2 days and we tried to spend as much time with her as possible, I'd like to do the same. As long as we've got all these elephants here, let's try and, here we go. There's one of the youngsters. This is probably where there's a family group. There's one just off to our right, next to one of the albizias. Also be a young bull just about leaving the herd in his early teens. Maybe this evening we'll come back towards the hyena den as well. There was also a rhino on the western edge of Philemon's cut line that was there this morning. We didn't see him, we saw his fresh tracks. He might also be at the dam, so we're just going to visit Treehouse Dam and have a look. Excuse me, doves. Thank you. Excuse me. Squeeze me, I'm a doctor. Most of the herds were west of Treehouse Dam this morning, but it doesn't mean they wouldn't go back towards the dam. Steph, hi there. Getting really nice questions this afternoon. Steph is asking about a statement that I made earlier today, this morning. This morning I said that it is up to the matriarch of a herd, of a group of elephants. It is up to her to decide when there are a number of suitors coming in to breed with the youngsters, or with the young females, not the youngsters, but with the females underneath the matriarch, which would be her daughters, no doubt, her adult daughters, teenage daughters. And Steph wants to know, has there ever been a study done that shows some consistency in the choosing of the male by these matriarchs? And yes, there has. I'm sure I know there has been, particularly in areas like Amboseli and, well, maybe Addo to some degree, but I'm just trying to think of the organization, the Amboseli Elephant Foundation, or there's something. This is Cynthia Moss's group of elephants in Amboseli. Most definitely, because every single elephant in Amboseli and that part of Maasai land has been documented, and every mating, every aspect of their lives pretty much has been documented. So very much so, that kind of information will be able to be gleaned from those records. Whether or not there's something to be said for a consistency in the choosing of the mate, I don't know. I would have to look at those records and maybe get some better idea. But most definitely, studies have been done on elephant over such a consistent period of time that it would be easy enough to go through those records to see who the father of the children are, and to see whether there is a pattern in the choosing of mates for the females within a breeding herd. Whether or not it's the same male, or there's a tendency to choose different males for different for injection of different genes coming in, that remains to be seen. Okay, so we're back at Treehouse Dam. None of the elephants are here, sadly. There is a hippo. I don't know what happened to the second hippo that was here this morning. They probably had a little bit of a disagreement as to who was going to be here for the day, which is why that other hippo was still out of the water when we were here, and it was perhaps also why he didn't rush into the water when we were viewing him. This is probably more dominant bull that is here at the dam at the moment. And he's been displaying as we were arriving. Now of course he's not doing anything. I could always go for a swim and get him to be a bit more active, but I don't feel like it right now. Okay, well, let's move on. I'm debating which way to go. But in the meantime, got a Bertel starling right in front of us, and I don't know if the camera can see him, but there's just the sunlight on it is absolutely gorgeous. Can you just turn around, please? Are you showing us your dark side, starling? Show us the bright blue. There you go. too close to us. Excuse me. Oh. We look at you for 5 minutes, you don't do anything, and now you're starting to get a bit active. Alright, he's displaying to something here in the bushes. And it's not us. I wonder if there's a leopard in there. There were leopard tracks here, but I thought maybe it's from Induna as he came past here from Rebecca's Road going towards Twin Dams where he was seen last night. Could have been that it caused the tracks. Yeah, this is all threat display. The blowing bubbles, the blasting out of his nose. If he does that too, this is all displacement behavior because of our presence, perhaps more than anything else. But there was one moment he was looking into the grasses that looked like he was threatening something there. I'm getting two suns shining on me, one from the sky and one from its reflection in the water. So I want to move, it's getting pretty hot here. Oh, heron, sorry about that. Leopard tracks around here, and I think this might have been, this is coming back. Let's go down towards Weaver's Nest and have a look. Looks like the leopard tracks coming back here from the east or the southeast. Let's head down this road briefly. So we can get some soft sand and have a look at some tracks like about here. Elephant, elephant, elephant. Nah. Elephant and rhino. If there was anything here before the elephants all got here this morning, then its tracks have been obliterated by so many elephants. I'm going to do a loop, come back to the dam from the other side. I'm still waiting to find, still trying to find a really nice track, and I think I know where I'm going to find one. It's probably up on Spum Road in the mud. Guido, I haven't forgotten about trying to find you a nice track to show you the wrinkles and the markings on under the foot of an elephant, to be able to identify individuals. It's not as easy as one might think, but it is possible. Hello, bee. Just to digress slightly into the subject of Karula and youngsters, there seems to be a little bit of confusion. Well, it's not so much confusion. Well, it is. It's confusion brought about by conflicting reports. There's a bit of confusion as to who there was and where they were this morning. Because at the end of drive, once I signed off and I managed to talk to several people, it sounded like it was just the cubs, which is why there was only one vehicle allowed there. And that Karula wasn't with the cubs, that it was only the cubs that the sighting was, and that when everybody left to go back to the lodges, they were still on the other side on Arathusa Safari. Tara got a message to say that the cubs had come across, and that Karula, I don't know, as I say, the conflicting reports. So it's still going to be a while before we know exactly who there was at that sighting and whether Karula was there or not with her cubs. Tara mentioned that they only do have one vehicle per sighting, no matter whether it's Karula or only the cubs. And I need to find out more about that. But it seems we were both told different things, so I need to speak to some of the guides if I pass anyone this afternoon and establish where they were, whether they came across onto our side of the world, and whether Karula was with them or not. I can't imagine the cubs are going to move without Karula. Doesn't make sense to me. Happy frogging, heron. Happy bubble blowing, hippo. I want to go down here quickly, down to the bottom of the dam. Just want to look around there a little bit. A bit muddy and a bit wet to go any further. Hoping to get a view of the edge of the dam from this angle. Maybe through here. That hippo is facing the same way constantly, and I'm wondering if it's not because there's an ingwe there. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to see that spot. What I can do is just quickly, if I get out and there's a leopard, it'll stand up. Buffalo. Can't see him. I just had a look around the edge of the mud. There are leopard tracks in the mud here. There's also a lot of elephant tracks. There's just one set of leopard tracks. But as I was down there at the edge of the mud, there's a big buffalo that stood up and huffed and puffed at me. And of course the hippo hasn't taken his eyes off of me either. But buffalo fortunately ran away. I don't know whether to take that as an affront, whether to be offended. Well, now with the vehicle between me and the buffalo, I just want to have a look at these leopard tracks again. Now I've got smelly, muddy feet. But there's a big leopard that was here. And I don't know whether it's because of the mud and his toes are splayed. Toes are splayed. Don't know whether his toes are splayed and his foot is really spread out because the mud is so soft. I know I've got really muddy feet now because I had to go through a lot of mud to get to where he was walking, and it looks like he's crossed over. So we're going to go across to the other side of the dam once again, go up that road that takes us to Spam Road and Gowrie Main Junction. Oh, he might even be here watching me, this leopard. But I've got a feeling from the way the hippo was behaving that there was something around, and he was behaving like that more for something else than he was doing it for us. Where'd that buff go? Did he run away again? Oh, he walked off. Chicken. Of course. Don't tell him I said that. Heron hasn't moved. Heron's got its eye on something. I'll just stop and quickly look at Heron for you. Look at Heron. Waist deep in the vegetation there, in the water. Waiting for a frog to move to strike. Yeah, good enough. Sorry, I'm impatient because there's been a leopard here. Yeah, we're moving, sorry. Wrap it up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I still want to get back to the Ellies. I also want to find out where all these family groups went to. I'm also got to find a spot to wash my feet. It'll probably be a good place on the other side of the dam wall. The hippo doesn't mind. Have to wait, my feet can be dirty, no time. Have a shower when I get home. Just had a shower, but I had to get clean to get dirty again. What's the point in getting dirty if you're dirty already? What's the point in getting muddy if you're clean? I mean, if you're dirty, if you're not clean. So displaying now. We leave. Big brave hippo. Waits till we leave to start throwing his weight around. He's looking at something. He's not even looking at us, and I'm sure he's not even displaying at us. I've got a feeling this is all about a leopard. And that leopard is here again. Now going south, going east rather. There. Here. That's female. That's female leopard. That's Karula. Oh boy, I'm getting so confused. Buff's there where I was walking. I don't know. Hippo's not going to really react much to buffalo. But the buffalo's gone down to where I was looking at the leopard tracks, probably to sniff around to see what I was doing. I can just see him there. Now we were here this morning and these leopard tracks are on top of our tracks from this morning. But there's a much smaller leopard that has moved east on this road. And maybe it is Karula. It's got to be, unless it's one of her daughters that might be coming. Saseka used to come this way sometimes. Very small female leopard. Right there, look at that. In our tire tracks, right here, below you. Yeah, it's going back down the other way. But there was nothing that I could see. I couldn't see any tracks going towards Weaver's Nest. There was no sign of leopard tracks there. There's also no sign of that big male's track coming out this way from where that buffalo is standing now. I'm actually not even going to go much further up towards Shabam Road. I want to go back to Treehouse Dam, sniff around a little bit more. This is too interesting to give up. We have had one other young female leopard come and visit this part of the world in the last year. What was her name? In fact, Yambilu Yodan was cheating on Karula with her. She was flirting with him. He didn't want to know her actually. We watched them from Treehouse Dam, crossing Philemon's cut line. We followed them all the way, crossing Zoe's Road and eventually crossing Triple M. That was... Somebody help me please. What was her name? Ntima. That's what her name was. Ntima. Maybe this is Ntima coming back. Here there are no tracks, and here's this pathway that goes down to the water. So let's have a look down here. Different angle. Buffalo settled himself in the mud. Oh, he's got up now. thing is, nobody growled at me when I was out of the Land Rover. And it is normal. I mean, that's almost exactly where I was standing, where that buff is. And he's not too perturbed, but then he wouldn't be too concerned about a leopard. Just going to scan the grasses with my binoculars and see if I can see an ear. At best an ear, if I'm lucky a face. Oh, here goes a little green-backed heron, frightened out of the grasses. Look at the clouds of flies over his back. He's trying to get himself covered in mud to stop them irritating him. They must be an irritation to no end. Wow. Franklin's shouting up there. Let's go back. Wish I could just drive straight through here. Don't know if we would make it though. Franklin's made a noise up on the other side there. Go a little bit wider afield now. Hippo. The fact that the hippo isn't even watching us means that I still think there's something there. But we're going to go down to Weaver's Nest, come back up the other side of this Treehouse Dam Road, the extension of Elephant Skull. Any stations out yet? female leopard tracks, not here. And I didn't see her tracks heading up back towards Philemon's cut line, so let's have a look on Weaver's Nest. Excuse me, francolins. Thank you, children. See, it's got to be polite, and then they move out the road. We were here after the elephants, and the leopard was here after us. So we would need to have a look at tracks again and again. Although we were here earlier. Do a double take. No. Will your tailor come in? The hippo tracks from that other hippo are here. He might have gone to Treehouse Dam actually. But no, just doing a double take on this road. Ephraim, come in. Yeah, afternoon. Where are you guys heading this afternoon? Sorry, repeat that. Where's the lock? Okay, but no Karula. Yeah, I've got Herm Konzo here at Treehouse Dam, coming up onto Treehouse Dam from Spam Road, but there's also tracks of my daughter Ingwe here, but I'm not seeing them leaving the dam. Okay, also there's a few Madod and Dlov on the southwestern side of quarantine. And one in Yari, one in Vubu Treehouse Dam. Okay, so Karula's cubs are there, but she's not there, and that's why I think these are her tracks. We just heard something moving up, chasing, well, I didn't hear something moving, but something chased the Francolin just beyond the dam, so we're going to go back up towards Philemon's cut line. Maybe she was walking there. We'll see her tracks on top of our tracks coming down to Treehouse Dam. If it is her, she might have been watching me walking around, tucked her head in the grass. She's not a stranger to us humans. She knows us individually, I'm sure, since being in camp so many times. She's seen me. I've watched her from my room, so I have no doubt she recognizes me and knows maybe that she just had to hide away instead of being aggressive. If she had her cubs, she might have been aggressive. But her cubs are up on Triple M. They have evidently come out onto that fire break area, so we can make our way there to go and see them. We're much more comfortable finding her and following her back to the cubs, being with the cubs and her together rather than just being with the cubs on their own. But what would be incredible would be to see if we can find her and find her making her way back towards them, because it's getting late afternoon now. She's not going to be leaving them overnight. I very much doubt it. But she's going to let them be on their own during the night, especially when hyena and lion start moving around. So there's a good chance she's going to be making her way back towards them. The fresh tracks were on that side of the dam, and then there was nothing east of the dam, so there's a good chance that she crossed through this drainage line, more or less here where this buffalo was. Might have been why the hippo was doing what it was doing. Let's go and have a look. Maybe we can find her and follow her. Oh boy, don't know where to begin this afternoon. Also, I wanted to go back to the Ellies, but we're not going to be able to do that right now. Hello, Tim. Something in there. Only the leopard tracks coming down to the dam here. Tim's asking, are we allowed to use roadkill to bait the big cats and stuff? Well, we don't really get much roadkill, Tim. In fact, we don't get any roadkill. If there is any roadkill, it's millipedes and maybe a snake here and there, or a lizard, or a grasshopper. Hardly enough to bait a big cat. But no, it's not a case of not being allowed to. It's that it would never occur to us. It's just so unethical. Just would never do that. The other thing is that no, I don't even know how to respond to that. No, just a simple no. I think will do, rather than getting. Because that's likely to work me up, just talking about it. There's actually a tree on the other side of Treehouse Dam where I think that used to, because there's wire up in a marula tree 10 to 15 feet off of the ground. And Treehouse Dam is called Treehouse Dam because it used to have a treehouse in it. But I'm reckoning that that's probably like from about 20 years ago. Yes, it used to be done, Tim. In the good old, no, they weren't good old days. They were bad old days. It is something that used to be done. I know there are some lodges, in fact, some lodges that are some of the biggest lodges here in the Sabi Sand. Why did that branch be?
There was a squirrel.
So maybe chameleon or snake. I know that some of the big major lodges here in the Sabi Sand used to, I won't mention names, for fear of being sued for libel or defamation or whatever. There's the buffalo tracks. He came down here after we arrived. But I'm not seeing any leopard tracks. So maybe it was the buffalo that frightened Franklin earlier. They used to pull in leopards. I know that when I first started working in the bush in the mid-80s, funny enough at a place called Ulusaba, I was trainee manager and the only guy. There was only 8 guests at Ulusaba at the time. It wasn't owned by Branson. We were just 3 owners prior to Branson. There's another Ellie. And the guy who was managing the camp at the time, or the lodge rather, was a big friend of a guy who was managing a lodge next door. I won't mention names once again. And I know that they used an Impala one night and tapes of lion calling to bring in lion. But you can get banished from this part of the world now for doing that. How are you? Good. I know. Do you see that big Madoda on quarantine?
Yeah, 2 big Madoda.
No, there's one Makulu.
Yeah, I book it.
Okay, there's Ingwe down here. Karula's somewhere here. Mkonzo comes down from Spam Road down towards Treehouse Dam.
Yes.
On top of my Mkonzo from this morning, because I was there at maybe 9 o'clock this morning, quarter to 9.
Okay.
And there's also, I had a look in the mud down at the western edge of the dam. There's a big Madoda Ingwe here as well, but I can't see anything. And that Mvubu is behaving strangely.
Okay, it could be Jordan and her. They always
Yeah,
hang around.
yeah. Where are you going now?
Impala Plains, I just want to book a that one people.
Okay, but I'm sure a lot of the eastern guys are going to be there.
Yeah, it was one now. Armando.
Look at that little one. Okay, well, I'll make my way there after you. Just keep me posted. Okay. Now, these elephants are all over here now. This is where the big herd is. Stretched from here all the way to Quarantine. And if you've got a map, you can see it's quite a large area. All these females, and here's the one with the half ear that we saw the other day. This female. We are looking into the sun. It's a little bit awkward, I know. Half an ear and only one tusk. Been in the mud somewhere. I'm just going to move forward. Let's try and get a better angle. We're not looking into the sun. She's an interesting elephant. I can't even begin to imagine what would result in losing almost the entire ear. Look at that little one. We saw that. That was one of the little ones that was bouncing at us the other day. There we go. Some fairly good shade here to stand in. No, none of the other little ones. That might be the bump in the nose one, behind that female. What's amazing is how small that female is and how long her tusks are, and it goes to show that tusks have got nothing to do with age. She could be an old lady, she's just not a very big lady. Oh, there too, there must be one of those, that's a little bump in the nose, Ellie. We don't know where to look first. I know it's one of those days, we've got elephants all around us at the moment. They're all moving about. Not that one, and then there's another one beyond that. They're making their way to the dam. Huh? Yeah, that big female. Could be her calf. That had the bump on his nose, one that was jumping at us. I think they might be going back to the dam for a second. Unless they were finding mud elsewhere, because that youngster in front of us has got mud all over and still a little bit wet on the top of its back. Let's go the sunny side of them. Sorry. Well, let's go around there. I want to get see if we can get a shot of her and her calf. Don't move, girl. See if we can get a shot of her and her calf with her broken, well, her half ear. No, she's moving off already. I'm just so desperately trying to get a database of all the individuals that we see, and it's not easy as much as one might think it is. Try and photograph all these elephants. There's a nice shot of her. Beautiful light on her now with that half ear. Hi Lynn in Canada. A very interesting question there. Wondering how much this would affect her hearing and her cooling, considering the fact that an elephant's ear is responsible for cooling their body down to quite considerably, I mean to a very large extent. I'm sure it would affect the cooling, having lost that much of her ear. I'm sure it would affect her hearing somewhat, not that much. I don't know if you saw me this morning, I was cupping my ears when I was trying to listen for elephant. I was trying to give myself bigger ears, and essentially it would be the difference. If you want to try this, if you're in a relatively quiet place, in fact you don't even have to be in a relatively quiet place, but if you cup both ears with your hands, and you're standing outside and you see how much you can hear by cupping your ears, and then you take one away and you just leave the little piece of ear that nature gave us, you'll see how much of a difference it makes in terms of how much hearing, how more acutely you hear with your ears cupped and without it. And that's basically with an elephant's ear, there's just so much more sound being brought into the ear by having that large pinna. I'm in a half a mind to go back to Treehouse now, because they're all going there. They're going to be going for a late afternoon drink. Might take them a few more minutes to get there.
Should we do a track for Gita?
I need to find a nice one. We do need to do a track now that the sun is getting low. Remembering Guido's question. Guido! A friend of mine has a Guido in his family. Naturally it's an Italian family. His name is Gino. Devil's Claw plant on the ground. I was hoping to find the seed, but I stopped to pick up. It's a very old primary feather from a lilac-breasted roller. It's been rained on and damaged. Looks like a youngster too. It's a very small one. I need sunlight on a track to be able to show Guido what we're talking about. You got a nice big hole in your left ear there, madam. I would be making my way up to see the cuz, but unfortunately there's only one vehicle allowed there at a time, and there is a long lineup of vehicles waiting to see them, so we're gonna stay here for a while. I still believe that there is a leopard somewhere in the vicinity, if not two. Elephants are still a little way away from the dam. But making their way there. Okay, so they are still maybe 10 minutes away from the dam. I'm gonna go and do something different. Go back towards Philemon's Dip. Getting the sun a bit too low now, so I've got to find an open patch of road where you're going to be able to see an elephant track. And it's all very well having the sand and having an elephant track in the sand. But I really want to try and show a track that is really distinct, to be able to show you what it looks like, the wrinkles in an elephant track. Andrew, come in. Andrew, come in. Which station within Ingwe Mampimpa? More of the herds here, more of these elephants coming out on our left, and yes, they are all slowly making their way back to the dam. So for the time being, how many stations are on standby for that, Ingwe? Go again. Hello, Arlene. Thank you for your email. Arlene saying she saw a similar injury to an elephant once caused by a snare. Arlene, that's a fairly new name for me. Where are you? And where did you see that? Oh, Marlene Lefebvre. Okay, Marlene. Okay, that's better. Now I know who we are talking to. Marlene Lefebvre. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but Marlene. Spent a lot of time in Africa. Oh, there are tracks here, but they're not in the sun. Ah. Gonna go up to see if the bulls are still there. Come back again. This is going to be a whole up and down story today. Backwards and forwards. Good day, Alan. What have you got? Garlic breasted roller. Please don't finish it quickly. I want to see what it is. It's a cetonid beetle. One of the flower chafers. It's actually a very pretty beetle. And the flower chafers, you get flower chafers and fruit chafers. A lot of people who have roses will get cetonids or the flower chafers around their roses, and a lot of people don't like the flower chafers around their roses. They're a subfamily of the scarabs, actually, or closely related to the scarabs. It'll be quite a hard thing for this roller to swallow. It's probably trying to get the elytra and maybe the legs broken off, trying to soften it up. It's quite a large beetle for this roller to swallow. Maybe it's not doing either. Maybe it's just tenderizing it, and there goes a beetle. I'm not going to get even a leg to look at. Alan is asking, are these elephants not just wandering, ambling along and feeding? How do they know where to go for food and water? Well, Alan, they know exactly where they are. They know exactly where their food is. They know exactly what time of the year different trees do different things, what time of the year certain trees fruit. But also, in the hundreds of kilometers that they roam, they know where the trees are that are fruiting. And that is all part of the learning process that other elephants have to go through, that the matriarch teaches her family, that she picks up from her mother and grandmother. Part of the reason why elephants become grandmothers and they no longer breed, and why they no longer, or rather, why they still stick around, why they don't die off like so many other animals that die once they finish breeding. Elephants harbor such an encyclopedia of knowledge about their surroundings, their habitat, where different things are within their environment, where things are to feed on. Okay, this looks like a really good elephant track to talk about now, because we've got a little bit of sunshine on this patch. This is a good example. Perfect example, almost. So let's get off. And
sound down.
hello, Impala. Oh, he actually greeted me. Right, now what we want to do, the most important thing One of the most important things that we want to do when we're looking at a track, let me just take this spider web off of there. Okay. Hello. One of the most important things that we're going to look at, and then first we're going to actually do this. We're going to come this side, then come this side, everybody. All of you, there's enough space for all of you, all 500, 600, 700, 1,000 of you. And we're going to try and, the sun is very low, so it's not a perfect example, but the sun is behind us now. And looking away from the sun, I want to show you how these tracks look. You can sort of see them, but now wait, let's go to the other side of these tracks. We're getting all tied up here between the two of us. One day we'll get all wireless. Now looking into the sun, here is a track. Now this is the very big round hind foot of an elephant, and I'm going to, this is a very, very special, very unique pointer. It was given to me by a porcupine, and I had to promise the porcupine I would only use it for educational purposes. But here we have the outline of a very large round foot of an elephant. In the front of this track there's a patch where you can see how the front of the foot has dipped into the sand, and it's actually kicked a little bit of sand up, and that's how we tell the direction an elephant has been moving. But now Guido, for you in particular, you can see all this rough patterning. In fact, you can see these little ridges, and perhaps if you go a little bit lower with the camera, rather than looking at it that angle, try and slightly more that angle. I don't know what that looks like. I'm just going to turn the screen. There we go. Perfect. Looks phenomenal. Okay, look at all these little markings, and these are individual to every elephant. So what you could do is you could take a piece of glass, you could gently place it over here, and you could trace out some, maybe on a grid, you could trace out certain patterns on a piece of glass with say a whiteboard marker or something, and then trace that onto a piece of paper to keep track of individuals. But that is the fingerprint of an elephant. Now this is the big round hind foot of an elephant, and over here just a little bit further, the front foot. This is the big oval hind foot of the elephant. So that was front foot, this is back foot, and the fact that the 2 feet are a little bit different in space means that this elephant was moving quite fast. But you can see it's almost like the tread of a shoe. They're little ridges and troughs. As far as his left, whoops, on my hands and knees here. As far as his left feet are concerned, here you can see just the back. This is where he started slowing down. He was almost moving fast with his right, and then as soon as he started bringing his left leg out, you can see there's just a tire track that went over the edge of it. But here's the hind foot, and then, or rather the front foot being placed there, and then the hind foot came and was placed inside the back of the, or rather the front of the hind foot. And then as he moved on to the quarantine open area, his next placement of his right feet, the front foot, or rather the hind foot, was placed in almost in the track of the hind foot. So this elephant was moving fast as it came through here, where those two are separate. And then this is where the next right feet, because those were right feet, the next 2 right feet were placed here. So if we have a look, let's go back quickly. Let's just look at this sort of 5 o'clock section of the hind foot. And we can see there's 2 flat patches with a little wrinkle in the middle. And we should have something similar here. They're they're 2 flat with a wrinkle in the middle. Almost identical. Well, not almost. Will be identical. Sorry, that's the front foot. Hind foot. Let's have a look. There's also at 5 o'clock a very distinct line over there. And we look at this one, the front foot. No, hind foot. I'm confusing myself, so I hope you're not confused. But there's that very similar one wrinkle over there, and we could find the same, and we'd be able to identify this elephant. If we had a mark, if we had a pattern of what his wrinkles looked like, we'd be able to identify him, because no other elephant will have the same configuration of wrinkles as this one.
This has been quite a large elephant then.
No, this is about a 20-something-year-old. This isn't a very big bull. If this was a big bull, it would be about this big. If it was that big tall bull, it would be much bigger than that. This is one of the smaller bulls.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Remember, round front foot, oval hind foot. I know I was confusing everybody there for a minute, but here we go. Pictures back. I should have put this porcupine quill to make a sort of a measurement, because we might even find, oh, oops, that could have been disastrous, because where's this big bull now? Is he following the herd? Did he come across the road here somewhere? Alright, let's catch up with what's going on with the children. Where's my giant elephant? Bull tracks coming down this way. Top of our tracks. There he is. He hasn't moved. He hasn't moved. Or maybe did I? It probably could be his. Maybe he has moved. We just haven't been here to see it. Maybe he just came across this side and he went back that way. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, his tracks. He did. He crossed the road. Look at the size of this. This is actually him coming back across the road this way. Don't know. You don't have to bring it off the vehicle, but just have a look. If I can point it out to you. This is him coming back across the road.
Hold fire.
Yeah. From now on, where's our sound? There.
It's coming through there.
Through there?
Yeah.
Or through the porcupine court?
Porcupine.
Should I talk through the porcupine court?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, I'm talking into this is where the sound is coming from. We're going to go back towards Treehouse Dam because those elephants are going to go drinking. I wish that he went that way, but he's just chilling. But two of these porcupine quills up to this little bend is the length of both of those tracks. Huge, massive. So he did move a little bit. He just happens to, it's just coincidence that he just happens to be back where he was earlier. More elephant west of us, down the bottom end of Quarantine.
Would you say it was about 40 centimeters in diameter?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, I don't know about this 2.5. Oh, it's circumference. Yeah, not diameter. 2.5 times. Tomorrow we bring pieces from now on. What will be permanently on this vehicle while we've got elephants here? It's going to be a piece of string and a tape measure, and we'll start measuring things. And we're going to go and measure that piece of that terminalia where that elbow was to try and get an idea of his height and his size. But now we're just going to go back to that other one because it's going to be interesting to show you size difference. This bull's got to be in his 40s, I reckon, at the size of him. He's a giant. Look, there's the heron that's coming from Treehouse Dam, which means that the elephants are at Treehouse Dam. Something's there. Moved this heron. No reason for this heron to have left the dam. It's flying over the big elephant now, and it's going to Gowrie Dam. So we're going back to Treehouse. And on the way, we're going to stop at the original elephant track that we saw a few minutes ago. We were discussing, and I'm going to see how accurate I was in guessing how big his tracks were compared to the younger bull that we saw. I've got no input on my monitor, by the way. That heron has been forced up for some reason, and if all these elephants are going to the dam and there just happens to be a leopard somewhere there, that leopard is going to have to move. Right, we are back at the original circles I drew around these elephant tracks, and we're just going to use my porcupine quill speaker stick come measuring tool come microphone, whatever. Okay, so the original elephant, are we sound here?
No, you sound in the stick still.
I don't know where to talk to. I want to look here, but I've got to talk there. 1 and a bit of this porcupine in length for that young bull that I was looking at earlier. And my guess, when I drew the circle of what a big elephant would be, about an inch shorter. About an inch shorter. But yeah, okay, we'll talk about it now. Let's get back in. We want to get to Treehouse Dam. We want to start getting closer to things. Well, I wasn't. I was smaller than what his foot actually is. So he's a beast. He's a monster. He's a big elephant, but he's a gentle giant. Come on, give me something here. HDMI. No. There we go. Okay, so this porcupine quill, 2 1/3 is the diameter of his tracks compared to 1 1/4 of that elephant track we were looking at. That young bull. Wow, he's got monster feet. It's like he's got feet like the difference between my foot and say a 7-foot basketball star's size 14 to 18 or whatever. My size 8 versus a size 14 basketball star. I don't know, any basketball stars? Do we have any NBA? Oh, that'll be the day. I wish we had some interest from the NBA, or imagine if we could go live to an NBA ball game half time. And I could say to all of the basketball stars, you know, there's another Ellie. I could say to them, you know, your feet are in size comparison like a big bull versus me, or rather younger bull. Elephants everywhere, elephants for Africa. But I want to get to Treehouse Dam because something, and my guess is it's all the elephants, got that heron all upset and got that heron flying away. Which station going to Mpisi Kaya? No, I'm just coming past Mpisi Kaya. I just wanted to know who's going in there now. Is that you? Oh, must be. What's happening with those Ingwe Mampimpa? Okay, copied. So they were never on this side, or they were on this side at all? Okay, copied. So Karula is there also? Just one youngster. Alright, thanks. Okay, we're not even going to bother going because they aren't on this side of Triple M. They are still on the western side of... Hello, Elise. Little boy was up on the termite mound. So evidently, before even Andrew got there, which would have been even over an hour ago, maybe, they might have come across, looks like they maybe came across to have some water, and they went back again onto the Arathusa Safari side. So we're not going to get a visual of these leopard. Evidently there's only one cub there. There's going to be a lot of questions as to where the other one is. I don't know where the other one is. There's no talk of it just yet. Another elephant crossing the road up ahead. Okay, we're going to go to the dam. Let's go to the dam. We'll see you just now, children. Later. Now, in terms of what one of these little elephants, some of these little ones, let's see if we can find you a track. But these very little ones that are running around, their track could probably be smaller than my hand, smaller than a lion track. A lot of shouting down at the dam. There's probably a lot of disciplining going on. Some interesting things. So let's go back to Treehouse Dam. Boy, we haven't done very much in terms of distance this afternoon, but it just goes to show that sometimes just so much excitement can happen in a short distance, and in a short space of time, I suppose. But it sounds like a lot of activity going on down. Excuse me, squirrel, wake up! Gosh. sitting in the road. And Franklin's. Excuse me. Hello. Coming through. Excuse me. Okay. Squeeze me. No. Join your mate in the grass. He's looking for a gap to get into the grasses. Can you see? I want to go that way. There, go that way. Now, there we go. Good on you. Well done. Thank you, little Frankie. Frankie Franklin. Hello. Elephants. Woo! What's your trouble? Oh! Okay, I get it. Maybe they're not at the dam yet. Well, a lot of them are still here. They could also be trumpeting because they saw a predator, and if there's leopard here, then maybe they saw leopard and there was some screaming going on. Sun's going down, it's getting a little bit cool. Put a porcupine claw through my nose. Did you? Now, there's a good question. Can you tell an elephant's gender from a track? Not easily, Scott. Not easily. Oh, buffalo's still here. So much for there being elephant here. They haven't got here yet. I'm not seeing any ellies here yet. They're still... Well, maybe they'd come down for a drink. Or are you trying to hide from me, hippo? I know you're there. I can see you. Doesn't matter if you flatten your ears. Trying to be incognito amongst the floating vegetation. Ears flat. Sorry, I didn't get that. Yeah. I still was thinking that there was maybe a leopard this side. We're almost in the dam right now. And wheels in the water. Hmm? Okay. Maybe there comes a time when you got to say, well, maybe we give up on the idea that we're going to find a leopard here, or that the elephants are going to come down. Thanks, Ed. Diameter times pi is circumference. I can somehow recall that from my maths days. This was really displaying now. And I forget whether it's 2.5 times or how many times it is circumference that gives you elephant height. I don't know. Somebody said 2.5 times. I'm not sure if that is it. Could be. Maggie wants to know how a female elephant disciplines her calf. She kind of combination of a headbutt and a tusk jab, or she'll pull it with her trunk and she'll shove it with her trunk. Generally they shove them, and when you've got a female and she's trying to do something and you get this calf, there's this constantly there where she's trying to do something, she's likely to push it away and it'll moan a little bit and it'll come back, and then the next time she'll push it harder, and then she might actually even elicit a scream out of it, because it's like any child. Not really painful, but it's more just being admonished, just being disciplined that a child reacts. Little one. Hello. This might be the one with the bump on his nose. No, not the one with the bump on his nose. Just too precious. You can see those little tushes coming out there. When he opened his mouth like that, you can see his baby tusks. Lots of lush green grasses to feed on here. Hello, Mama Ellie. Learning how to use that trunk. She's got very straight tusks. Almost like that's how a forest elephant's tusks grow. It's a young bull. In the middle of elephants. Look at me. I'm as happy as a warthog in a wallow. Look, watch these two little ones gonna play together now. Sorry. Have a game for us. Excuse me, young man, can you get out the way, please? Come here. Just can you move that round hind quarter of yours, please? Thank you. Hello. We want to see the two little boys. Or a little boy and a little girl, maybe. Getting back to the question of telling the difference between male and female tracks, I guess one has to consider more than just what you're looking at. And it's like anything that you're doing when you're looking at the tracks of animals, is you're not looking at one individual track, you're looking at the whole bigger picture. One has got to take into consideration all different factors that are associated with an animal track. And when you see an elephant track, obviously females are going to never be as big as that big bull. So most definitely from a point of view of size, yes, you will be able to. But the other thing is that elephant cows are always in groups. and with youngsters. And although you might occasionally find a young elephant on its own, young female, for a brief moment, you're mostly going to find it in association with tracks with calves and other sized elephants, to know that those are female tracks. But I mean, this for example, this young bull that was next to me, this is a young cow that we got in front of that we're looking at now. But this other young bull that I was reaching out for, his tracks are going to be about the same size as some of these cows, so it'll be very difficult to tell the difference, because this is a young bull with these females. I'm actually not sure, to be honest, whether there is a difference in shape. Look at that little boy. Oh, there was a collective rumble there. Probably just to tell the children not to come closer to us or something. Sorry, just putting my jacket on, getting in the way. It's cool. Hello, Dawn. Do elephants yawn? I have to say, I've never seen it, Dawn. And it might have something to do with the physiology. Let's move forward and see these two little ones playing, and hopefully we won't disturb them. Dawn, the whole thing about elephants breathing is somewhat different to other animals, because with elephants it's got something to do with the lungs being linked to the rib cage, and the diaphragm is different, so that might have something to do with why elephants don't yawn. Or I've never seen elephants yawn. Maybe they do, I've just never seen it, although I spent a lot of time with elephants. I can't say that I've ever seen an elephant yawn, and I don't know what even an elephant would look like. You're gonna bully the little ones, huh? Now I've got to go through relearn some things about elephant lungs and rib cages and rigidity of the lungs and stuff, and why they're so different. And to do that, I'm going to watch a program that I watched that taught me this. It was quite recent, actually, a discovery program where they dissected an elephant and they talked about how it breathes and how the lungs and the rib cage work and the diaphragm and stuff like that. I can't quite remember it, but that might have something to do with it. In fact, I'm sure it does. But I'm a little bit shady on that info. They're having a lovely game, those two. Okay, I didn't get that question from Eric. Hi Eric. If any of the big tuskers or emerging big tuskers come through our area. Not really, Eric. I've seen a couple of really nice tuskers, but I don't think one could consider them emerging big tuskers. The thing is that they don't have names yet, so well, I don't think they do. So I wouldn't be able to tell you which ones. I remember one day I was leaving the reserve with one of the guys from Arathusa, and we saw we saw 4 bulls, 2 or 3 of which I can't even remember. I took their photographs with my phone, but my phone has a really, really poor camera because I didn't have a camera with me. I was on my way to Hoedspruit, and well, I'd say they might have been emerging tuskers. I've never seen them here on Gowrie. They were up near the gate. They'd crossed over probably from Sydney's Dam heading west towards Simbambili, and but no, none of the up at Timbavati there are a couple of bigger tuskers that I've seen there, but wouldn't know what their names are. And that's quite a big ellie, this, for a female. For a cow, she's huge. Hello, Mum. Ma'am. Mum. Madam. Your Highness. I mean, she's bigger than some of the bulls we've been seeing. But if that big bull had to come, he'd still tower over her. This is the big cow, if I remember correctly, that we saw that when she had her back to us. And I was saying she looks very round. She does indeed. She looks like she's bulging. She doesn't have a very young one in attendance, so I'm guessing that maybe she's getting close to giving birth. She's very, very big. You want a porcupine quill? Yeah, you can come, you can take it if you want. You can put it through the hole in your ear. Hello, Mrs. Ellie. Hello. There's porcupine quill. Peace offering. She's only about 6 feet away from me. And she chose to get this close to me. She chose to come up to me. She's eyeing me out. I'm looking deep into her eyes. She was looking into mine. If you can see mine underneath this hat of mine. Yeah. Lovely cow, this. Wow. Bill's asking if these youngsters are still suckling. Bill, these youngsters are going to be suckling for another year or two. They suckle for quite a while. But yes, they will still be suckling. Let's move on a little. They're actually not making their way to the water at all. Okay, relax. Relax. Don't worry about it. Ruth wants to know if I have to avoid eye contact with elephants when we're this close. Absolutely not, Ruth. I'm actually making direct eye contact. Especially with this one now. She's probably going to throw the stick at me. She's got her eye on me. I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. It's just big primates and humans, which are big primates. Cats to some degree. But no, I've never considered not making. I mean, any animal I'm with, I make eye contact. It depends on how you do things. I mean, I have been with leopard on foot, where I've been in a standoff with big leopard males, and I won't take my eyes off of him, looking at him, but not with big, wide open, threatening eyes, with very soft cat eyes. You know, closing your eyes a little bit, softening them. Try it if you've got a cat. Anyone who's got a domestic cat. Look at your cat, and then it's like not quite blinking, but closing your eyes very slowly, but not closing them all the way, so that you're still looking at them through slit lids. And I'm pretty sure your cat will do the same thing to acknowledge your contact, your eye contact. Yeah. What a funny noise. You know, I'm happy to sit and have them come up to us and display like she was doing now and do what they do, because to a large extent they're just carrying on and doing what they're doing. Hello.
What is she doing?
Ah, she tries to intimidate us, testing our reaction. And as long as we don't react, as long as we sit quietly, it kind of gives her a message that I don't really understand what she's trying to her. I'm saying, I don't understand what your little actions are, and I'm ignoring you. And then she gets bored with it. But there's one cow's right on top of this termite mound as well with her calf. Up there eating the raisin bush and the grasses. That's quite something to climb up there. Hey, what's... Hello, Ruth. Wants to know if I've ever seen an elephant burst. Only on film, Ruth. Unfortunately, I've never been lucky enough to witness it in the wild. But it's starting to get dark, and we're going to go up to Zoe's Road and make our way that way and see. Maybe we'll get to see the youngsters, or maybe Karula's around. But I want to leave the Ellie's in the dark. I'm not. It's just we're going to leave them be in the dark. Look, you see how Mom reacted? And now she's grumbling. There was another young female that came out, and I don't know what it did to this little calf that belongs to this big female on the termite mound, but it gave a little trumpet and she whirled around and rumbled at this youngster. Now what she would have said to her. Hello. Hello, young lady. Hello, Jody. Jody's asking what ranges of frequencies do elephants communicate. Well, I don't know the exact hertz, Jody. I think their highest trumpets are, the trumpeting and their squeals and things are way up there in the maybe 100 decibel range. Well, no, we're not talking about decibels. We're talking about hertz, frequency, not loudness. The highest frequencies are audible to us, but there are frequencies that go down to, I think, something like 20 hertz or something really, really low. I'm guessing, but I'd have to look it up at the exact frequencies. But most of their communication, long distance communication, goes into the low range frequencies that are too low for us to hear, below our audible range, what we call infrasound. And it's their higher frequencies that we hear, and some of their rumbles are sort of the lowest. The rumbles that we can hear are the sort of a frequency that is the lowest limit of our frequency range. Some of the low rumbles. Gosh, it's a clear sky tonight, which means that it's already getting chilly. I reckon it's going to be quite a cold night and maybe a bit of a chilly morning. But we're going to leave them all be, and we're going to make our way. We've only got I think less than a half hour or so, so we're going to head up Zoe's Road and maybe see if we can catch a cat. Little one's playing. Sad to leave them, but yeah, it's getting dark, and I'll leave them in peace. Okay, I'm starting up now, Elise. Elephant right next to us on the left here as well. Hello, Elle. Asking if that elephant that lost half her or most of her ear, if it would have hurt. I imagine so. I imagine it would have been very uncomfortable for a while. Blood vessels, veins, ligaments, yeah, I suppose. Well, not so much ligaments as much as there are nerves Their ears are very sensitive. So I imagine it would have been uncomfortable for some time. I'm not putting my lights on just yet until there's some youngsters up ahead of us. There's another one. But I really don't like shining lights on elephants. Quite a few youngsters in the bush just here on our left. Bye everybody. Thank you. Love you lots. Take care. The trumpeter said goodbye. Don't you want to take the vehicle from here? Just leave me. I'll sleep here with them tonight. Don't know how much they'd enjoy that. Yeah. Hello, Elizabeth. Wants to know how old those two little calves were and how many were probably surrounding us. Oh, it's chilly. Elizabeth, I'd say those two little ones are probably in the region of about 6 months. They're under a year, maybe 6 to 8 months. How many elephants were surrounding us? I don't know, could have been 20. I mean, in the immediate vicinity, probably about 8. But in the greater area, even more. There's a lot of elephants here. There are a lot of elephants. English taking a back seat. But yeah, there are a lot of elephants here at the moment. More of them even here. So let's leave the lights off and bright enough for you to see. Another little few calves up ahead, playing in the dusk light, this crepuscular light. There's that little one rolling in the road. It's like all the kids are here playing. There's another youngster that's very young. A couple of females coming out to this youngster. I think they're a little worried about it. Big sisters. There we go. Two big sisters coming to make sure little one's okay. There's even another youngster there too. Also very young. Just reassuring it. Being protective. Neither of them are adult. They're just big childminders. They're just big sisters. Cradling it. She's actually now pushing it. She's actually guiding it off of the road, probably taking it back to mom. These are no doubt, without a doubt, little boys. A couple of older females, well, they're youngsters, they're children, but these older females are just trying to play surrogate mother with the babies. They'll react to headlights. They're not too bright. Not in their eyes shining down. Good question, Alan. Asking, in a tug of war, how many men would be needed to have a draw or win against an elephant? A difficult one. I know there were about 20 of us when I was when I was helping out on a rhino capture exercise. We were trying to put a rhino in a crate. The little one wants to drink. There were 20 of us against one rhino bull. An elephant is considerably stronger than a rhino bull. This little boy is probably about a year. Still trying to drink. I don't know. I don't know, Alan. Couldn't even hazard a guess. Some of them got a fright from that. I wonder if this little female's coming into estrus for the first time. She's a youngster, she's only about 8 or 9 maybe, but that female behind her, that mother of the calf, is actually smelling her vulva. That looks a bit wet. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Still about another dozen elephants around us at the moment. We can't go anywhere. We're just stuck here. Is that supposed to be intimidating? Or are you just having a scratch? Probably just having a scratch. Right, these two. I can try and open it up so it's not a spot, more of a flood. Right, in front. And the little one was underneath Mom on its knees. They're actually coming into the light. This is just the dims of the car that I've got on the front. They're not too worried about it. If they didn't like it, they would walk away. But they're actually getting closer and closer to us. 3 youngsters here, 3 little ones. In front of us? Yeah. No, that's her. No, that's. She's got a youngster drinking from her. That's where the female genitals are. There. That one. Thirsty, mommy. See, there's a little female just in front of us that's drinking on the right. Yeah. I see it.
What's the female?
Yeah, the young cow. I remember this one from the drainage line the other day because Mom doesn't have much milk. She's got very small boobs. It's not nice poking her in the shoulder like that. A lot of excitement all of a sudden. That half ear over there. You just see an ear in the silhouette of the sky. They've all stopped, they're all listening. And they're moving again. It's amazing how they all stop in unison to listen because there's somebody, one of them is talking, one of them is sending a message. Or this, because the trumpeting or something. Let's try this side for some milk. Hello, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's asking if she came over here and went on a drive, would she be able to sit in a herd of elephants like this? I'm sure you would, Elizabeth. It would largely depend on who your guide is and how comfortable your guide is with elephants and how well he or she knows elephants. I don't see why not. I was just thinking there's one elephant we haven't seen amongst this lot, and that's our little broken trunk or shortened trunk Ellie. But maybe it's a different, maybe she's not part of any of these family groups. Maybe they're a different group entirely. Quite amazing. There's a vehicle coming, and as this vehicle comes towards us, they're all disappearing. They were all comfortable with us, and now that another vehicle's coming, they're all moving. Any station with Ingwe on Triple M? No, Craig. It's May. My guess is that it's time to call it a day. That kind of rhymes almost.
Around new time.
No. I'm going to now. Oh boy. Well, I know I tried to get you leopards. What can I say? I was waylaid by elephants. How many times can I use that as an excuse? I was waylaid by elephants. It's been a for me and for Daniel, and I hope for a lot of you, it's been a fantastic afternoon this afternoon. Humbling and just absolutely, I just love it. I don't even think I'm going to sleep tonight after all these Ellies. But my name is Mark. Daniel been on camera. Craig has been in final control. This has been Wild Earth Safari here at Djuma Game Reserve, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning, 6:30 Central African time, as we head out again here and go and look for some of the wonderful wildlife that occurs in this part of the world. So do join us then. Bye for now.